Learning guitar is so confusing, so hard, or is it easier now or harder now than it used to be? It's just different.
It's different.
Stay tuned. We're talking about guitar, learning it, teaching it, all sorts of weird things. Hey, it's me, Baxter.
And me, Jonathan.
Here at Casino Guitars. So Sean came in storming hard with ideas. Ideas aplenty.
Hard and fast.
All right, thank you.
He came in hard and
fast. I haven't
fast.
said that in a while. No, he came in, he did. That's a weird thing to say when you come into a group of men. He came in and he was really as passionate. He was like, man, you guys learn guitar like with your ears. And we don't do that anymore.
So weird.
I know, but it's like, it's because we're old. Like we're officially old compared to like all the young cats out there. And we did learn guitar in an entirely different way.
Oh, entirely different. I would maybe say with our eyes too, because you'd watch people and then hear and then try to find it. I would. That was big for me. Like trying to figure out what were they doing on the 10th fret right there.
My parents were so technologically behind, like it was all ears, I think.
Yeah.
Because like we didn't have. I mean, I remember when they got their first camcorder. I think like digital was probably already out at that point. Like, look, we got this thing. It's got little cassettes, and I was like, Mom, here's our first microwave. Mom, it's 2010. What are you doing? But
There's toilets in the house.
It is funny. So even like, and then teaching too was so different. Like, we've been teaching for a long time.
Yep.
A long time. I hate to age it, but it feels like a long time. And, back in the old days, if somebody wanted to learn a song, we would have to learn the song.
Yep.
Listen to it.
Right.
Notate it out ourselves.
Yep. Make
sure it's sort of right, but we'd learn it in our own way. It might not be the way they did it.
It's something like this.
I mean, that's. I remember when I saw someone play the Rain song, like I learned it by Led Zeppelin. I didn't know what alternate tuning was at this point because there was no internet. I just sort of figured it out, and I was like, "Oh, this is nothing at all." Like I'm just doing all these weird chords and these huge stretches, and it sounds sort of like it. And that's how I would show people to do it too, because that's all I knew.
Well, it's weird because I watch videos now because we have YouTube and we can learn about anything, where guys will talk about growing up and having like a community, and I always picture them being in like a city, a place where there were musicians. I grew up not in a city like that, so there was less of that, right? I didn't have as many like older guys to say, oh, well, it's like this, and here's
what's that special valley in California where all the songwriting happened? Derek?
Laurel Canyon?
Thank you, Laurel Canyon. So it wasn't a valley, it was a canyon.
Canyon, valley, whatever.
I couldn't remember. That type of idea with teaching.
Yeah, well, just that. But I mean, it's like you said, I didn't really know much about alternate tunings. The first time I saw a tube amp in a pawn shop, I thought, wow, it's got light bulbs in the back.
Wow. It's something I saw at Grand.
Oh my God, these are the valve things they're talking about. Holy, I remember having that moment.
It's still confusing.
As a teenager.
Well, that was the part that it sort of like lit up our brains a bit because Sean was sort of like, he was talking about it, and like we've noticed it in the shop too, and somebody asks us can you play like this song by Neil Young? I'm like, well, can you play it for me real quickly on your phone machine?
Your
I hear it.
Device.
Then I'll play it 5 seconds later, and they think it's wizardry. And it's just the way we all learned back in the old days, and it's a way that has sort of been lost. Because like today we have so many more amazing opportunities to learn too.
Yes.
Like there's learning opportunities are everywhere on the internet, everywhere around your local communities, hopefully too. And take local lessons if you can. It's just a great way to supplement or be your main thing versus just the online. But there's so much available, but are we losing something because we're not training these anymore?
Well, I think like you and I are maybe not the greatest guitar players, but we know how to listen, and we can, if someone's playing, we can play with them. We don't have to learn it, right? Like we could just
we talked about that with like, if we're rehearsing something, like we don't really have to, you just tell me what it's going to be. And
it's fine, and we'll go play. And I mean, there is something, like I see people learning more complicated things, but they don't necessarily connect those things to, well, I can do this in all these contexts. It's just, they learned that thing, and that's sort of it. Do you know what I mean? It's an island, right? And then to learn the next thing, they have to start from scratch and learn the next thing. I don't see people... because I try to tell my students, especially when it was ear thing, hey, you hear how this little chord progression works? Like you hear this in this song, and it's in that song, and it's in that song. And anytime you hear this progression or this interval in this little lick, that's it, right? Like you can do it. You can apply it to all these other things.
I'm always about the root note. Like I'm trying to teach kids whenever I'm with them, just find that root note. That's going to open all the keys to everything. You got your scales, your pentatonics, your majors, minors, whatever you need there. It's
There's some bass players out there that need to hear that lesson. Find your root note. I'm sorry. I couldn't let it pass.
Well, and then I'd say you and I sort of
Guitar
learned
first.
in similar ways. We learned a lot by ear. Like, a lot of people learn in the churches. A lot of people learn, I learned in some of those too, just playing like R&B and rhythm and stuff and that.
I learned a lot like that in churches, playing.
But then eventually
Rhythm.
I went down a different path a little bit with like I started learning classical.
Right.
So I wanted to figure out a way to go to school because I'm not very smart. Yeah. And then so I learned all that, and then I was talking with Derek earlier too. Then he's talking about how he learned in like sort of church tradition of choirs and choral arrangements. Everyone was learning classical music because you learn how to read. Because you got to read the sheets, and
When you read those harmonies, and how to sing, and which is you really learn chords, realize it.
that again is sort of gone away too. Yeah. Like my world was much more like the band and orchestra type of thing, of like learning music so you can play with these groups. And then if people continue into college, they do that too. Then they continue into band orchestra teachers, or just have lots of babies. That seems to be the path. I've noticed in the B&O world. But it's a skill that's not taught or even wanted to be taught or learned as much anymore. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just happened.
Yeah.
And so if it's bad, if you want to have like a working role in music, like a lot of times, like, if you're a great musician, that's one thing, which is amazing, but you also need to be able to read scores, fake books, proper like sheets, just so you can, if you want to work in the Broadway or even some of the studio stuff. It's required because they'll give you the score, boom, here's what we're playing today.
The Nashville stuff is all just number charts, right? Nashville number system, read the charts, know the rhythm notations for that stuff. And but I feel like that's taken over, and even in churches and stuff now, it's Nashville number system. But yeah, I guess, I don't know.
Well, I feel like the point is like, there's so many good opportunities to learn from today.
Yep.
But you just have to be really careful to not neglect, as we said in the beginning, the ear is so important.
Your ear, yes.
Like to be able to play with other people effectively, I think it's probably the most important. That and rhythm.
Well.
It's just, those two features are often overlooked because I've seen in some of those glorious blues jams before. Get some cats up there.
Killing it, crushing it.
You might think you're crushing it and you're shredding, and like you might be in the wrong key. You might be in the right key, but it sounds like the wrong key. You're just playing notes. You're not breathing with the other players there at all. It's a song and dance, and that's one of the things that it was funny as Sean.
I feel attacked.
No, but as Sean was talking about, because we just don't think about. It's hard. You don't think about that as not being second nature. It's more of we've gotten so far away from it. And even with the world of where we live on social media clips of, 15 to 30 seconds to a minute and a half, playing things that people rehearse for, weeks maybe before they record and post the one they like after a careful selection. That's not reality necessarily when you're playing with other folks. That's just how it is.
It's just not.
That's why our demos are very mediocre, because we get one take, no start overs.
And we don't think about them until we're sitting here.
Well, that's part of the fun too, is like somebody hand you a guitar, see what the guitar wants to say. And you might be in a bad mood, the guitar might be in a bad mood that day, and just you get what you see. There's no mulligans. That's a golf term.
Sadly.
When you get to reshoot, which we had lots of those the other day at the putt-putt course in Pinehurst.
Mulligans.
Lots of mulligans.
No mulligans, kids.
Our visiting artist, Zach, person who we love to death, he's terrible at golf. And that was, so I'm glad he's making his career out there on the musical touring instead of the PGA tour.
Can be good at everything.
Gotta be cool if he was a pro golfer.
No, it would be cool if he was a pro putt golfer.
That would be cool.
Because there's a pro tour for that, right?
Yeah, I think so. It'd be tough with his skinny jeans, though.
I think that would help his aerodynamicness.
Because we're trying to get John Daly to come on our little show here at some point too. We think that'd be.
He's not coming.
He might. He'll be here for the U.S. Open. That's coming around soon, in a few months.
It's possible.
Have like some drinking games, and
I feel like he'd come for drinking games.
I think that'd be fun. Like, hey, we're gonna have a drinking game and do it on YouTube. It'll get, 50,000 people hang out and watch you maybe.
How would you play how would you adapt beer pong for golf?
Easily. You just have like little cups that you have to
put into them.
And you make it, and there's a beer can behind it. You just chug it, or
you gotta chug it and then spit the ball back out.
I don't know how I couldn't compete with John Daly.
I don't think anybody could.
Is it Joey Chestnut, the food eating guy from?
I have no idea.
The that Joey Chestnut, the Coney Island guy? Like those guys are just magical with their bodies. I can't do any of that. No, so it's a tricky spot. So teaching's changed. Teaching's a lot. I almost say teaching's easier today. A lot easier.
There was a little more work on the before the student got there back then. Because if you knew they wanted to learn a song and you didn't know it, you never heard it, you couldn't pull it up just as easy. I'm talking about like pre-iPhone teaching. You know what I mean? Like
like just even flip phone era. We'll go that far back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like you said, I mean, I still write the stuff out for my students, so that's not really changed that much. I think part of it, right? I mean, you still get kids back then who'd come in and they'd want to learn the newest whatever, Blink-182 song or whatever. And complicated things, I remember having to buy, like, I'd go buy sometimes, like, the tab books if it wasn't something that I could figure out. And it wasn't that I couldn't figure out, I just couldn't spend weeks on every single student's
I have the
thing.
Metallica,
You know what I mean?
Injustice for All tab.
Yeah, because
that was a lot of stuff, and I was really into Metallica for a moment. But I was thinking about some of the teaching has always been easier, too. I'd say I'm going to revert back and sort of flip it. I think classical teaching is often some of the easiest teaching.
Would you know what I think? I was thinking about this when Sean said it. The thing I think that has changed the most and maybe makes it slightly easier was back then, you just taught them what you taught them. Now I think the mentality is I can come in and it's like YouTube and I can flip the channel and I'll just tell the teacher to teach me this. And back then there was
that's trickier too.
Back then it was like, well, here's my sort of method. Here's how we do it. You're going to learn this song. And you'd let the kids learn songs that they wanted to learn.
Draconian in my world.
Sometimes I would. Honestly, it depended on how much I enjoyed the kid. If they were little snots, then I'm like, nah, we're doing.
You're doing hot sauce buns for a month.
But if I liked you and you were cool.
But back to classical teaching though, because I know like I've been through tons of those lessons back when I was younger. So many of them were just like I'd come in and play the piece I was working on for the week, and then they'd be like, all right, the notes would be like, try this one finger on this one measure, maybe just one or two in the whole thing. Play with more feeling. Take your time. So I mean, I almost put it on a tape recorder. I'd be like, take your time, play with more feeling, and like you could just be like. So I remember when I've taught classical, it's easier because there's a piece there. I don't really have to do anything. I just watch you play it.
A foreign world to me.
It's not that hard. Once you get it, as far as it's funny.
Right. Because I remember my only I took my brief college career. I took a little piano lab, and she was like, "Are you reading that, or are you just hearing it? Are you reading it? You're not reading it." And then, she'd yell at me, and then I would,
I know, I'm using these again. That's where you get an F in piano lab.
Yeah, it is. I didn't do.
Well, let us know your thoughts. If you're a new generation learner, and like if you're pulling something from the old school, because that's the best. That's the best of worlds. Or if you're an old school and you think this crazy new stuff's terrible, I think that's crazy too. The hybrid of all is the best.
If you could get well-rounded, like you could hear things, you could read music, you could learn these crazy things on YouTube, it could all be glorious and work together. And we're a super musician.
We're at a glorious time for learning. It is truly glorious. But if you only rely on what you see on the screen, on your phones and whatnot, and not these little girls, then you're in trouble. Because our ears are feminine. I've decided that, and so I've made it so.
That's fair. They're very, soft and caress your lobes. I don't know.
Can't believe you might have misgendered my earlobes there. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Click like, subscribe.
Hit the bell.
Let us know your thoughts. Peace be with you all, and to all a good night.
Yay.